Okay, it's 7 o'clock and let's get started here. So I'd like to call to order the Public Safety Committee meeting for Wednesday, September the 8th, 2021. This is a virtual Zoom meeting. Be advised that the video, audio, and chat history is being recorded. We are called to order. We have a quorum present with Alderman Pro Tem Mark Betancourt present and Alderman Joseph DeLucia present.
We hear from Bill?
I have not heard from Bill.
Alderman Nash, excuse me. Okay.
I think we'll just stall for a minute here and see if he pops in.
Open.
Just text him and see if he shows her.
My microphone is unmuted.
Alright. Is it unmuted?
It's unmuted.
All right, Joe, it's Tim Jenks. I'm here. I'm having problems logging in. Can't hear you either.
You're muted right now. There you go.
Yeah, there we go. And the clock's a little slow.
Gotta go back and mute myself.
Okay, so let's see. Waiting room is clearing out.
Bill says he's stuck up in Worcester right now. Last
Okay.
minute emergency at work.
Yeah, am I muted or unmuted?
You're muted now. Just a couple of the fire chiefs are joining the room, so I'll just give them a moment to for the software to let them in.
Good evening. I made it.
Perfect. Okay. Looks like everybody was in the waiting room is now in. I'll kind of keep an eye on it out of the corner of my eye here. As I said, we have a quorum present. Moving on to the adoption of previous meeting minutes. We got the draft minutes from the recording secretary from our August 11th meeting. I'll entertain I'll entertain a motion to adopt those minutes,
So moved.
seconded by the chair. Any corrections, deletions, changes that need to be made to the minutes or any other discussion on the minutes? Hearing none. We'll do everything by roll call. So,
Yes,
thank you. So all those in favor, all right. Pro Tem Betancourt votes yes, the chair votes yes. The meeting minutes from August 11th, 2021 are adopted as submitted. Thank you very much. Item number 3 on our agenda tonight is citizen comment. Please raise hand and I will recognize you. Please state your name and address for the record before you make your comments. Is there anyone that would like to make a citizen's comment to the committee tonight? Is there anyone that would like to make a citizen's comment to the committee tonight? Third and final request, is there anyone that would like to make a citizen's comment to the committee tonight? Okay, hearing none, we declare citizen comment closed. Thank you all very much. Item 4, unfinished business. 4A is COVID-19 update. The city manager is unable to make the meeting tonight. I do have his report on the Chiefs meeting. From back in August. I do not see anything on the topic of COVID-19 or the Delta variant. So I think we could forego that, and I would just ask each of the departments to include your thoughts and what's going on with your individual departments regarding COVID when you make your full report. Does that sound like a plan? Okay, thank you. Then moving on to item B, under unfinished business, the city manager's report on the fire chief's meetings. As I said, Mr. Salamone sent this to me via email. I will read it into the record, and discussion by the committee can ensue. So city manager's report to public safety, September the 8th, 2021 meeting. I last met with the fire chiefs on August 18th to continue our discussion on the ongoing fire service needs, excuse me, in the city. The chiefs had met on their own the previous day. The topics in our meeting included automatic aid, SOGs, volunteer membership, dispatch needs, and material storage at the emergency management. Heading automatic aid. As the chiefs had discussed this the evening before I met with them, the conversation included a recap and further discussion on the path forward. There is valid concern with the chiefs of introducing new procedures to an already overwhelmed dispatch center. With that in mind, the chiefs understand that any AA procedures presented to dispatch should be clear and concise and as easy to implement as possible. To that end, they'll be working on a master street list with automatic aid assignments. Once they have worked through the proposal, they will present it to the PD and dispatchers for their feedback. With more than 800 streets to work through, this is no easy task. I will update the committee on the progress of the chiefs. The concern of AA's potential impact on volunteer membership was raised, with some chiefs' concerns that volunteers will not feel compelled to respond if they know an automatic aid company is going to respond. This is an interesting dilemma that the chiefs will have to work through with their respective groups. The automatic aid will be on fire-related calls where multiple companies are needed. So this should not be a problem, but the chiefs have raised the concern. Another concern that the chiefs brought up is that automatic aid may be stepping stone to leading to a one tax system throughout Norwich. I do not believe this to be the case, but it may be good for the chiefs to hear different perspectives of the Public Safety Committee members and perhaps the City Council as well. Chiefs will continue to work. The chiefs will continue the work needed to present a viable automatic aid protocol. They all agree that it benefits the person in need, as well as responding departments by providing help needed in a timely manner. For the most part, the citizens don't look at the name on the trucks or the names on the jackets. They just know they got help when they needed it. Standard operating guidelines, or SOGs. The chiefs will have reps of some of the departments for the team that will review and consolidate all 6 departments' SOGs into one citywide SOG. The group should begin their meetings over the next month. Dispatch. There was discussion on the staffing level and dispatch, as well as some of the dispatch procedures. The chiefs understand that this is a police department function, but want to make sure that their concerns are understood. As a group, they feel that dispatch staffing is many times inadequate. Their thoughts are that a fully staffed and supported dispatch center would better provide service, along with the ability to take on expanded duties. Questions were also asked on the procedures for dispatch rollover and the backup for system failures. We will look to include a police department representative at future meeting to address some of the questions the chiefs had. And equipment storage. We discussed the use of the emergency management building on McKinley Avenue for storage of COVID PPE and materials. The chiefs will coordinate amongst themselves for those that wish to store extra equipment. Our next meeting is scheduled for September 22nd. I believe the chiefs will try to meet on their own before then, but with Chief Montoya's military duty, they have not had the chance. And that is the entire report from the city manager. On that, any comments from the committee members, specifically Mr. Bettencourt? Any thoughts or comments you'd like to add or share?
Well, considering the history of the matters, I'd say I could understand people's concern regarding the one city issue. So, but I will say, at least as far as our group is concerned, we're not interested in pursuing that. If we were, we already would have. So our issue, and as I think we've been very clear moving forward with this, is the delivery of service only. So, and we want to make sure that we stay focused on that piece. I'm not interested in pursuing the one city tax. Can't say that, I can't guarantee that'll never happen 10 years, 20 years down the road if some of the city council wants to do that. But this council, this group is not pursuing that matter. We're interested primarily in that delivery, that safe delivery and rapid delivery of services. And that's the extent of it. I don't know. Obviously, this is going to take the rest of it. Obviously, it's going to take some work. So I think we've got to be a little patient with it, but we have to continually make progress on a monthly basis. And if we continue to do that, we'll get there eventually. Obviously, there's going to be a significant investment in materials and systems, computers, and things of that nature for dispatch and radios. I was talking to the city manager yesterday about it, and he's I think the ballpark number is $3 million, which will be addressed in the ARP funds over the next 2 years. So I'm looking forward to that piece, but that foundation has to be laid before we can really make any kind of substantial changes. I will tell you that much, because the other, all the things that are talked about, or most of the things that are talked about in the study, require that good foundation of work, to be able to work. And I'm referring to things like, proper dispatch protocols, and the radio system and things of that nature. So looking forward to seeing how this progresses in the future. Thanks.
Thank you. I'll just take a moment to say, because I've been asked directly by a couple of the fire chiefs and by a few of the members of the departments, and also a few of the members of the community. And my answer has been the same. I am not interested in pursuing a one city, one tax agenda or a program. Matter of fact, when Corporation Council asked me what my thoughts were on the financial impact of having the Norwich Fire Department, so having the paid department respond to fire calls in the volunteer districts, I said that I would support and vocally support that we should forego whatever the cost is, right? So this idea that the volunteer districts would be charged every time the city has to roll out there, I don't hold with that. I don't think that I don't stand with that. I don't think that that's good practice. It's putting money before safety. I think that's the worst of all possible ideas. And I would support, as I was saying, that we would forego whatever the cost is in the name of safety, in the name of getting apparatus and personnel on the scene of a fire as quickly as we possibly can, because we all know that every minute that ticks by, a fire grows exponentially. And I'm a math guy, so I may not know much about the fire service, but I know math and I understand exponential growth very well. So getting people on the scene and knocking down that fire in its infancy is infinitely better than than having minutes tick by. So to me, it's not a fiscal issue, it's a safety issue. We're not going to turn it into a fiscal issue and use that as a segue to push some other agenda. There is no other agenda for me. It is public safety first, delivery of service first, right? Keeping not only our community, but our firefighters safe first. And we'll figure out the money on the back end, okay? But I'm not gonna let that drive decision-making. It's beneath us. And I'll stop with that. Okay, so having a city manager's report on the record. Thank you for your comments.
Joe,
Yes.
I mean,
go ahead.
could we, would you mind opening the floor on that subject matter in case, I don't know if anyone has anything to say about it?
I don't mind at all. As a matter of fact, that's a great idea. Thank you for that. If there's anybody present in the meeting that would like to share some thoughts on what the city manager reported to us, it doesn't have to be just on the topic of automatic aid. Right, the city manager report had 4 headings. If the chiefs would like to comment any further, I welcome it. So floor is open. No takers? It's okay if there's no takers,
That's
but
fine.
yeah.
I'm good. After last
Yeah.
night, I'm good.
Yeah, right. But no, but you're absolutely right. Give you guys a chance to pipe up.
That's
Okay,
good.
all right, then we will move forward. Item. I'm
Joe, I
sorry.
got. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, chief.
It's a legitimate concern amongst the membership here, based on several things that happened in the previous election, from the mailing that went out to just the residents in the CCD. Maybe some of my conspiracy theorists are running wild, but that's what they're looking at, and as well as other actions that previous councils have taken in the past. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. And I will tell you that the gist of that, we want to call it a walk piece, was to make the point that when you have a nearly 7, or I should say almost an 8 mil difference between the 2 tax districts, that's a hindrance to economic development. And so, the reality is, my belief, I shouldn't say the reality, my reality, right? My belief is that the mill rate difference, there should be a mill rate difference because the CCD enjoys a paid 24/7, 365 service, no doubt, right? So there again, there's another argument against a one city, one tax concept, that there should be a mill rate difference. It just, when it starts getting over the top of 5, 6, 7, almost 8 mills, now you are crippling the CCD for any kind of economic development. And all of the other programs, we talk about downtown bond, we talk about the investment using the ARP money and different projects, and we listed a few last night. We could list them, for hours tonight, and we won't go down there. But so many projects are hampered or crippled or snuffed in their infancy because of the property that is needed for whatever the development might be is 8 mills more expensive per year than it is in the TCD. And that's a problem, right? That is a problem. But spreading the tax all over, just the idea of spreading the tax over the entire city in one big jump is just not, that's not, to me, it's not prudent, that, you know, for a lot of different reasons that I won't bore you with, right? But again, because it's, these are my beliefs. I'm not speaking on behalf of anyone other than myself. But I understand that that's a very, you know, that's a very real concern. So, and there's a number of ways of addressing that mill rate disparity and getting it down to a more reasonable mill rate. I believe, right? There are ways to do that don't include spreading a tax over the entire, spreading a single tax over the entire city. So, but I appreciate your input, Chief Jenks, because again, you know, some of the attitudes might be well-founded, but unfounded, right? I mean, so, you know, that idea that there are people out there that, you know, that have some real fears. I don't like to make decisions based on fear, right? So how can we address that? Is the work of this committee and of this, not just the committee members from the council, but the work of this group, you know, all of us, is how do we dispel the fear on both sides of the equation so that we're making good decisions, not ones based on imaginary, fearful, non-facts.
Well, you know, you're right, but to them, the fear or whatever is real.
Sure.
So the imaginary is not, is an inaccurate statement to these people, to these other people in the community that, you know, we talk to, that we see on a regular basis. You know, that is a concern that they also have too, business owners here. You know, they obviously don't want to pay for a service they're not receiving, which would just beg to differ that if, you know, how that would work out. So that's all.
I'll add a couple more cents into it from my end. You know, regarding that flyer, you know, Joe knows this, but I mean, I didn't have anything to do with that flyer personally. I was surprised when it came out, to be honest with you. I thought it was not a great move at the time, but I wasn't, you know, part of that. But the truth of the matter is, I mean, I've had conversations with some of your counterparts, Chief Jenks, well, Frank Blanchard before this and stuff. And the only, you know, there are some, you know, minor adjustments that I would consider, but nothing that would spread the entire tax across the city. And anything that I had ever would consider would be, you know, relatively minor. So I don't anticipate any changes in the near future, you know, because I'm not going to, for my money, I'm not going to support spreading that tax over the whole city. So just so everyone, so I'm clear, so you're clear on my feelings on the issue. So, period.
Okay, anything else from the rest of the group? All right, then we will move on to item 5, which is new business. 5A is the September 2nd, 2021 storm impacts. I'm interested to know, you know, what challenges, what successes, and what maybe unexpected things came out of that storm response for you. Is anything that was notable that the committee should be aware of? Because we don't always get all the boots on the ground details.
I'll speak up. I'm not sure, again, in what areas of the city were hit hardest, but first thing I want to do is thank all the Norwich Fire Departments. Engine 3 covered a smell of gas on Washington Street for us. Laurel Hill came over, 6 members, multiple pumps. We gave them a block of jobs to do, and they did them well. East Great Plains let us borrow some pumps to take care of the problem at the Comfort Suites. I had early morning conversations with Chief Jenks. He was busy over at the mobile home park, and I didn't forget Ockham. I was just about ready to pull the trigger on Ockham, have them go to West Town Street for some of the flooding there in the area 395, have them come right down the highway. But then they started getting busy. So we were fortunate. I truly believe. Obviously, none of this was from the hurricane was a cakewalk as compared to Ida and the rain she dropped. But not surprising. I think we found out that the areas of concern that have been brought about, I believe, by the couple of ladies from the general public in that Bliss Place, Julian Street area spoke about, that was a significant problem area. Again, West Town Street, Case Street, Shoals Avenue area, that was a significant problem areas for us. And again, I've got some numbers and stuff in my report that I can go over later, but again, working with the EOC seemed to work out, and we were, communicating with them every 2 hours or so. I believe we were monitoring the river from the firehouse. So again, I just want to thank, everyone got involved in, at least in the annex section, because of the rains left by Ida.
On mute. Thank you for that, Chief. Anyone else like to give us some detail, or Chief Jenks?
So we fared relatively with the storm and the hurricane. I'll give you some numbers for the hurricane after. We fared fairly well. We had an area that in my 50 years of living here, I've never seen that much water. We did have a problem, some, I don't know, miscommunication or whatever you want to call it with dispatch. Them issues will be addressed. There's a couple other operational issues that will be addressed that way. But everything went fairly well. Like I said, we almost had to evacuate one mobile home. And when we called to see where we could evacuate them to at 3 o'clock in the morning, we got no response from the dispatch center. So I don't know if emergency management hadn't been woken up yet, or it might have been still early in the storm or something like that. But at the time we didn't have, luckily we didn't have to move. So, but I'll cover the hurricane and stuff under the other stuff. And the only other thing is that I like to, Bill's not here, but I don't know if the man sleeps, but Bill constantly was texting probably every hour, making sure everybody was okay and if we needed anything. So kudos to Bill Nash for that.
Yeah, he's got a work issue tonight, it appears. I just was texting with him, so he's up in Worcester or something.
Okay, thank you for that, Chief. Is there anyone else who'd like to discuss storm impacts?
Good evening. I can discuss the impacts. I was going to do it under emergency management, but if you want me to do it now, I'll do it now.
Okay.
Basically, the tropical storm Henri was nothing compared to the flooding from Ida. For Henri, the EOC was activated, staffed by all the responsible parties: city manager, NPU, Public Works, Fire, NPD, American Ambulance, and NBD, Board of Ed. And we had a couple that were also remotely. The peak of the storm was primarily a utility function. A lot of stuff went on with utilities, mostly, not a lot of flooding per se, and the majority of the issues were probably with down wires. There was only minor flooding, again, pooling issues. EOC operated for about 9 hours, and the impact was much less than was predicted, as everybody knows. And we considered that kind of a good exercise to what occurred days later, which was Ida. So probably about, I would say, 3 o'clock in the morning, maybe 2:45 is when the majority of things started getting crazy and busy and stuff. So the EOC, was activated at that point. The rivers and the rainfall, were around 7.5 inches for 9 hours, which is what created the numerous calls for service. Once the EOC was activated, it was staffed again pretty much by the same individuals: city manager, MPU, Public Works, Fire, NPD, NED, Board of Ed, ARC, and NHS were also online via remotely. As Chief Jeng said, one of the challenges certainly was to get a shelter open. We contacted Red Cross really early to get a shelter open. And then later on, we're successful with getting the shelter open. And also there was people that were showing up there. And we also at one point had to evacuate 10 people and potentially for another 11 more from 80 Mohegan Park Road, which is the Mohegan Commons. We used the senior citizens bus, which worked out really well. Once we got everybody together, that's a very large complex. So one of the challenges was corralling the people and getting them to one place because there was so much flooding in that complex. And for those of you who don't know, Mohegan Park Road was completely impassable at that point. We had a car that was stuck in the middle of the road underwater, and all the surrounding houses were affected as well. So that was one of the major areas that were hit. And that included Gleason as well. So once the shelter got opened and we evacuated people, we connected a lot more with the fire departments, and we still have some work to do as far as communications wise. A lot of communications were not the norm. They were done by text message at time. They were done with various phone calls and stuff like that. And one of the challenges I think was to keep everything updated. So there's actually incidents now that I'll kind of talk about that we're getting a lot of phone calls on now for emergency management to deal with people that have had significant damage in their homes. Today, I went to one, and the gentleman actually wanted his house condemned so that he could get assistance to move out. He's worried about mold in his house. There's been countless stories. We've been out the last 3 or 4 days surveying damage and meeting with people. Unfortunately, we're waiting. There's a lot of numbers that come into play on whether or not Norwich will be declared as a disaster area and get a disaster declaration. We're waiting on that, and unfortunately, that's causing a lot of anxiety and stress with some of the residents because they have to wait. Unfortunately, that's completely out of our control. So one of the things that I'm going to be asking the fire chiefs for probably early next week is we have all the incidents. We know where the incidents were. What we don't have, especially Taftville, Yannick areas that were hit significantly, is we don't have a lot of pictures. So anytime we do documentation and go for reimbursement, we need as much documentation as we can. And again, we haven't had an incident like this for a long time that's affected this many people. Chief Ibers mentioned about the Comfort Inn. I was there today. They're looking at $1.5 million worth of damage alone in the Comfort Inn. So I'm hoping that once all the numbers come in, once all the paperwork gets completed, and it has to do with not only Northern County, but it has to do with statewide, that FEMA will declare the area, and give us a disaster declaration. That's really important at this point because there's a lot of people in a lot of bad spots right now, a lot of people hurting. So we're working hard on that, and I certainly to echo the chief's comments there. This is kind of new for me in that I'm used to the suppression end of things. I'm used to the mitigation part. But the after effects of what people have gone through are certainly, very, very challenging to hear their stories, to meet with them, to see what they're going through personally, and not being able to just hand them over money to, to help them rebuild per se is a tough thing to do. So, but I'd just like to thank all the mutual aid, not only that the city received, but also, that you dealt with in your own areas. So I think that's it for me for the storm impacts, unless anybody has any questions.
None for me, Joe.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the group, or is there anyone else that would like to share any details and observations from the storm?
Yeah, Joe, I can go. This is Barry Ellison from Norwich Utilities. I spent a lot of time in public works before going to utilities, and it was an interesting storm in that the smaller rivers seemed to do worse than the Yantic. I mean, the Yantic did come up. I think the flood stage it reached was about 11.4. Going back to those who remember 2010, that storm resulted in March was 13.8. So, quite a bit less than the catastrophic floods we've seen on the Yantic. But like everybody's saying, the smaller rivers that cross like Wauwikis and K Street, the Norwich Tire area, all those seem to do real bad, because I think we got real intense, 3 to 4 inches in a 1 to 2 hour time frame in the middle of the night, and that seemed to really do all those small streams in. We sustained a little bit of damage from the Bliss Place flood. That was quite bad for a while. That water's just going right across Washington Street. I have some pictures of a minivan in the Bacchus parking lot, which is probably less than a foot of it is exposed. That was about 3 a.m. So, I mean, that's kind of, my observations was it was certainly worse for us in terms of the water than Henri. Henri, though, obviously had a little bit more wind than Ida did, and we had more outages, of course, with that. But, as everybody said, Henri could have been a lot worse, and we're thankful it wasn't. We had several thousand people out of power, but everybody was restored about 30 hours later from that storm. So just no significant permanent damage from Ida or Henri from that matter. So thankful in that regard.
Hey,
Okay,
Barry.
Thank you for that, Barry. Go
Hey,
go ahead.
Barry. I'm sorry. Hey, Joe. Hey, Barry. Bill Iber from Yantic. I'm curious. I'm not a drainage guy, but we all kind of realize that on 395 at exit 14, they're repairing those crossovers up and down 395. And I'm just wondering if, and again, maybe not you, and I'm not sure Public Works is here, but just general discussion. Once that pipe's repaired, once that water starts flowing smoothly, is that problem on West Town Street going to be increased? I mean, it's just dumping water behind 12 K Street, and ultimately that water heads for that brook and that stream and heads for West Town Street.
I would say if the water can move more efficiently, probably there would be a concern there, Bill. Does water pile up behind it in its current state? Does it act like a detention basin of sorts? That I don't know. If it does, if it acts as sort of
Yeah,
a
no, I'm
choke
not sure.
point, yeah, I'm not real sure about that either. But it is conceivable it's backing water behind that, and that's acting as a little bit of storage area and slowing down the release of water. That can happen. I don't know the specifics about what they're doing and what exists there today, so hard for me to answer. But that thinking is logical.
No, just again, food for thought, and I'm not sure if maybe have the Public Works Engineering Department take a closer look at that. I mean, granted, it's a much larger scale fix than I think what any of us are thinking, but again, just that area gets hit every couple of years. It's almost a guarantee.
Yeah, I speak with Public Works quite often, Bill, and I will bring it to either Pat McLaughlin or Brian Long's attention to maybe just touch base with DOT and see if if they've thought about any downstream impacts with that.
All right, great, thank
Yep.
you.
There we go. And is there anything else anyone would like to share about the Storm Henri or Storm Ida impacts? Okay, well, thank you though for that discussion and information. It's very informative. Okay, if there's nothing else, we'll move on to item 5B, which is department and agency updates. All right, just for the record, for the recording, I should say, please identify yourself by name and title. We'll start off with NPU. Barry, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you again. You asked us to touch a little bit on the COVID-19 protocols and update. Not much has changed at NPU from last month. All operations people continue to report and work every day with proper social distancing and masking when appropriate. Administrative staff are doing on a hybrid model at this point. Our vaccination rate slowly climbs a little bit, but still probably not where we'd all like to see it. In terms of just a monthly update, I would say, we're probably getting close to issuing a drought advisory for people not to be able to use water for their lawns. Of course, I'm kidding with that. We're way over 100% on the reservoirs. There's no issue there. This morning, yesterday morning about mid-morning, we had a.
I'd say, what the hell? What are you, nuts?
Yeah.
Thanks, Barry.
Yeah.
Day by night.
No problem. Yesterday, you may have heard, if you watched the news yesterday, we had a little bit of attention from a non-weather related outage we experienced late morning into early afternoon. That affected about 2,500 customers for about an hour and a half. It was a mechanical issue inside our substation at North Main Street. Right now, our engineers are evaluating if that's a repair or replacement solution. So that is ongoing work. Just kind of something out of the ordinary for what we're used to experiencing, what our customers are used to experiencing. But we have no reason to think it was anything more serious than just a failed component at this point. And all systems have been normal since. Go ahead.
Yeah, are you saying that they might have to replace the whole substation?
Oh, no, a component of it. I'm sorry, Mark.
Oh,
No,
all right.
it was a breaker issue, but what caused the breaker to go might be something a little bit deeper. Not the whole substation, no.
Okay, all right. I'm just
At least as of right now.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, no problem. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Barry. Any questions? Any other questions, I should say, for Barry or about the utility?
You know what? I'm sorry, Joe. One last thing. I
Sure.
do want to thank the fire departments. A great job helping us when needed to get power turned off and gas shut off in the height of the flood and even the days since. As someone alluded to earlier, that that's an ongoing effort, and Comfort Inn in particular is having a real tough time right now. But others are as well. It was a tough storm, and just appreciate all the work and cooperation from all the departments and working with those basements and the people. So thank you.
Oh, thank you for that. Okay, so again, any questions for Barry? Sorry about that. That's a refrigerator that's saying replace me, and I'm waiting for its replacement to show. Unfortunately, it wakes us up in the middle of the night. Okay, so hopefully that'll be the last one of those. And we'll move on to American Ambulance. Rob, welcome. Good to see you again.
Good evening, Joe. How are you, sir? Hope you're well. Tim Benincourt, good to see you as well. Thank you for having me. Robert Radia, Director of Operations for American Ambulance Service. In the last month, we responded to 832 emergencies in the city of Norwich. 529 of those came through the 911 system, and 232 of them came directly as transfers from Norwich PD dispatch. The remainder were 7-digit phone calls, as people still call us. I still agree with them. Anyway, we were one of the 2,500 customers affected by the strange outage yesterday, and there was some damage that was done to our hospital radio link. So presently, we are operating without a radio link to the hospital. We have backup systems in place for our service as well as all the surrounding services as well. The hospital does operate a dedicated phone line specifically for ambulance reports to the emergency room, and they operate an application as well that allows for ambulances to do the same thing. We're currently investigating that problem. It appears to be a problem with Frontier communications equipment, not with anything that we have at either the ARS building or the tower site. We're looking into alternatives for that. I have been in contact with Eric McDermott from NPU regarding potential solutions, despite the fact that he is apparently deployed with the military for Monday. So we have a meeting on Monday to discuss that as well. Not anticipating any effects with that outage beyond our service for the city itself. But just be aware that if you hear that the radios have been down, that is in fact the case, and we're working on it. We are starting to feel the impacts of COVID once again. The numbers continue to surge, and we are seeing an impact with our staff as well. We do remain well over majority vaccinated, and we're taking steps to make that number higher going forward in concert with our partners across the state. However, that is going to be a slow process. I would encourage everybody to be mindful and be safe about that. No dispatch modifications at this time. I don't know that we'll get to that point, but I just understand that there is certainly an impact, and we're seeing it and feeling it in the city. Other than that, I don't know that I have a whole lot to offer unless the committee has any questions.
I'll ask, since you seem to be having issues, I know this is a toughie, but is American considered vaccine mandates for its employees?
It's been discussed. I don't know that we've come to an actual decision based on that, but we're working together with our AMS partners across the state to make sure that whatever message, at least the commercial services put out, is consistent. So we should have more on that in the coming days and weeks. I can tell you, Pro Tem Betancourt, that the major medical systems, Hartford and Yale, have both mandated vaccination for their staff. And I think that's the wave coming, whether or not we want to embrace it or not. I think that's where we're headed.
Yeah, I know it's a difficult situation to do. I know I'm running into this problem right now with my own staff. So obviously I work down at Pfizer, so they kind of are particular about this stuff. So so there are challenges that I recognize, and obviously some people are very let's say adamant in their desire not to receive the vaccine. So that will complicate lives and staffing to some extent. So.
For sure, and we remain as always committed to being a responsible partner in delivering healthcare to not only Norwich but to the entire region. And being part of being responsible is having the correct stance when it's necessary, despite how difficult it may or may not be. So we are working on that internally, and I can't make any further public statement, but you should have a better idea at least.
Yeah, I expected as much. Obviously I'm not looking for a commitment, but I mean I would just wanted to know if you guys would consider it. That's it.
Yeah, it's definitely been discussed, and what I can tell you is, despite the fact that we haven't put a mandate into place, like 85 or 90% of our clinical staff are already vaccinated. So we are well ahead of the curve in general across the industry and across the state for healthcare providers, short of the nursing homes who were actually mandated early last month, I believe, by the governor's executive order. So we are well ahead of the curve, and we're working and taking steps to progressively get even further ahead of the curve. Despite that, I can tell you from personal experience that vaccination is wonderful, and it certainly decreases the effects of COVID. However, it doesn't make you immune. So we have seen some breakthrough infections, not only in our staff, but in the staff's families and those types of things as well. So it's becoming a greater concern, and we are obviously actively trying to manage that risk as best as possible. So far, we haven't had any great impacts into service delivery to the city or anywhere else, but I'll certainly keep the committee updated if that becomes critical.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Rob. And moving on to the police department, Chief Daly.
Good evening, everybody. As far as COVID impacts, we had none for August, but September is proving to be a different story. I'll have a better handle on it for the September report in October, but we're in the midst of a couple possible exposures, dealing with vaccinated people with significant exposures, and that's a different world altogether. And some of the procedures that we were following 8 months ago aren't valid anymore. So we're trying to get our way through that, Brave New World, and while still encouraging our employees to be vaccinated. As far as the storm impacts, we held shifts for both storms and assisted the fire departments as much as we could. I do want to thank Public Utilities for feeding our staff because we don't have the facilities here to do so, and they were great taking care of us. We had the monthly report. I won't go over it. If you have any questions about it, other than to point out that we have continue on the average of about 2 shootings a month, which is a problem. We are working with the U.S. Attorney and New London PD in the next couple weeks to kick off a couple of initiatives trying to address this issue. As far as critical needs go, I'm just going to watch Alderman Betancourt's face as he winces. Back in 2012, we did try to replace our police station. It's now 9 years later. See, he's smiling. It's 9 years later, and things haven't gotten better. The problem of the clutter and storage has been solved, but as you know, like we were talking about heavily investing in dispatch, and part of that is hiring more staff. If we want to, and we all want to go to 2 dispatchers a day, 24 hours a day, but we don't have the room to house them and to have the dispatch center adequate. There's also talk of a lead dispatcher. Again, another proposal I am in favor of. We don't have an office for this person to sit other than to sit at a table in dispatch. And, to run a program, as Alderman Betancourt will say, you need a little privacy because you're dealing with sometimes complex personnel matters.
Yeah,
so I want to put. Yeah.
I have obviously I have an office in my center, so that's in my case. So
yeah, we don't have the
really
space, for the lead dispatcher if that's coming. So I want to put it on your radar.
What about where you were doing fingerprint out in the front corner, that little area there?
We stole pretty much every space we can. We've lost a couple of the interview rooms, so that little area is turned into a fingerprint / intake room. We'll take complaints from the street in that area. We double tasked and triple tasked rooms. A good problem to have, but still a problem, is we are at capacity for female officers right now. We have 10 lockers in the female locker room. The female dispatchers don't even have lockers anymore, but we have 10 female officers. So that's a problem. It's not a welcoming environment if you have to put somebody into a closet somewhere or treat someone differently just because of space concerns. So I just want to put it out there. I know everyone talks so much about critical needs, and I've been quiet for my years here, but it's time to at least put it back on the radar that, we keep talking about changing things and improving things and, adding things in. The dispatch center could use probably double plus the space, an office, and then the female locker rooms, and then all the other problems from 9 years ago remain. So I just want to throw that out there to the group. Just put it on your radar.
Personally, I mean, obviously, I have an appreciation for the issues with dispatch. I have a much bigger space than what you have, so I will tell you right now. So it's you got a kind of difficult. You have a difficult layout there. So.
If I had an easy answer, I'd tell it to you. I just want the group to be aware that that's on the horizon. And I saw Darrell on the call earlier. He was on the police station committee, the after action committee to review it. And Alderman Betancourt's a holdover and Alderman Nash from our last attempt. So just want to let you guys know the problem exists and it is real.
No doubt.
So I'll start with your report. I did send it out to the committee members and it will be in our minutes. I was looking it over. I did notice, I did notice the uptick in violent crime and is like, as you said, the shootings that caught my attention. But also caught my attention is that the number of traffic hot spots that you've addressed have increased, which tells me that the number of hot spots citywide is increasing greatly. And I mean, it makes sense because, as COVID waned a little bit, people started going out, more cars on the road, more, people have taken to walking in the neighborhoods and all those good things, but now we have cars and people trying to occupy the same space. And I know that, or that, I spoke to you at the last hearing about the art money, about a couple phone calls I got about Plain Hill Road, and some issues with speed up there, and I just wonder if you have any thoughts on how much the traffic concerns and violations are increasing as COVID starts to what's what I want to say? Well, as people start to be out in the public more in their vehicles.
No, we have long talks about this internally. It's a perfect storm of things. You have COVID starting to wane, and really people feeling more comfortable being in outdoor environments and resuming their activity. You've had people who have a new outlook on life, I'll just say. People, if you've noticed, our fights and violence are up. People are losing their minds over the simplest things. So there's a certain vigor that people have that didn't have their attitudes dealing with things. So you're seeing a lot of aggressive driving now. The police accountability bill kind of put police officers back on their heels. A lot of things that you could stop for, you can't stop for anymore. And the officers feel, they're not sure, they're fearful of getting complaints for profiling, so they're backing off a lot of motor vehicle activity. So put all those three things together, and you're seeing this rise in poor driving habits. I'm hoping it's a fleeting thing of COVID, but it's definitely related to all three happening at the same time. We're battling as much as we can. The complaint matrix, we talked about how we intake complaints of what we do a couple months ago. We're still following that, and your two streets you brought up will go on the list to get looked at and studied. But bad driving is real, and aggressive driving. It's really just a lot of aggressive driving. People are angry and they drive angry, and they don't care. The cell phone use, and you can stop 1,000 cars a day, and people just don't care anymore. And the courts are more backed up, so it's gone to online. So it's a multitude of issues that arise from a simple problem like getting people to obey the speed limit. But we're going to continue our efforts, and in addition to the regular officers, we also put grant funded patrols out when we get them.
And I intend to bring this up at our next Public Works meeting, but specific to Plain Hill Road, I know on the upper part of Canterbury Turnpike, the city posted those signs reminding people to give the 3 feet off the curb for people, for pedestrians, people on bikes, and so on and so forth. I wonder if Plain Hill and other streets like it, where we're starting to see faster speeds and more aggressive driving, wouldn't where some signage wouldn't help a little bit too.
Signage is sometimes does work. It works really well for Tim and Mark living in Tafel, and you as from your officer days. The Chevron signs on the Tafelockham Road coming into Tafel near the Pima Mill, that didn't fix the problem, but it helped. The Chevron signs on Asylum Street coming down. So signage does work, but it's not a cure-all. So we work with Public Works. We follow the model codes for traffic enforcement. And if it's a state road, that makes things even more interesting because we got to get the state STC involved. So we're looking at all options. We're also waiting for the arrival of 2 speed limit signs that you affix to fixed speed limit signs that say, solar powered ones that say your speed is as you pass 25 mile an hour thing, just to kind of send that message. So we're going to start buying more and more of the technology, just trying to let people know about speeding and move those throughout the problem areas. And if we get to some areas, like Canterbury Turnpike is a notoriously problem area, that may end up with a permanent sign there just because the amount of speed that people do on Canterbury Turnpike.
Yeah. On the topic of the dispatch center, so I I've been kicking this around for a while, and I don't know when the first time I said this out loud was, but if we're going to be spending a significant sum of money to upgrade the technology in dispatch and to add personnel to dispatch and the literally the real estate in the police station is limiting us on both of those efforts. I wonder if it isn't time for us to have a standalone radio center somewhere in the city, essentially, a bunker, so that we can raise the level or maintain the level of security that we have in the police department in a standalone building that is just for dispatch.
I think you lose the security aspect of it, and as far as on the police side, the ability of having the shift supervisor to be into dispatch to oversee critical incidents such as, pursuits or, barricaded subjects, you lose that. And not saying it's not done. Some of the really bigger cities do it. Waterford, I think, is the most closest city that has it. But New London and Groton both have their dispatch centers located in the police department. For what you'd spend to move the radio circuits, all the equipment, and then build your fortified bunker with the proper security, you're probably better off just for a larger fee, just keep it where it is, and address the entire issue with the police department. We have operational issues here that we need addressed as well, so you can kind of hit two birds with one stone.
So I used to love that clock. Now all of a sudden, not so much. So if a new standalone police station was not something that the community was willing to take on, what's the next option?
Well, that was in 2012, and that it was that proposal. The proposal in general could do it. Was it location? Was it the price tag? We did have the review committee, and if you look at the notes, and Darrell, I see he's back online. I'll actually call on him to share his observations from the post-mortem committee, we kind of called it, that looked at the police station, made up of citizens who I believe all voted no. I don't think there was a yes on the panel. But Darrell, can you hop in and just kind of fill us in?
So when I served on the committee, it was all individuals that I believe for the most part voted no. We may have had one that was on the fence, and we were able to, we did some tours of other stations. We came to a consensus of a decent sized police station location, and actually brought the price tag down significantly. And then from that point forward, it stalled. But I think we had more buy-in from individuals that voted no with the project at that point, based off of us really detailing the project and realizing the intricate pieces that had to go into the project in order for it to work.
Well, again, just food for thought, because we're gonna have to come up with solutions to these problems, sooner or later. And for my
I just want to put this on your radar. I don't want to take the whole meeting. Obviously, we could spend hours talking about this, and I just want to, hey, listen, it's out there. The problem's real, and it hasn't gotten any better in 9 years.
And I appreciate that, and you kind of just took the words out of my mouth. It's like we need to start having these conversations. Just so that we, who knows where the bright idea and the right idea is going to come from, right? So I appreciate you bringing that back to the forefront, because sooner or later, our council is going to have to deal with this once and for all. So thank you for that. Moving on. Norwich Emergency management. Mark, you muted.
We'll get used to this someday.
Yeah, you pulled the Delucia.
Yeah. So Mark Waters, Director of Training and Safety. I kind of already covered most of the stuff with emergency management, for the two storms. And since then also, dealing with the, with the damage and also, I would also like to add that we did activate or we requested the CERT team twice. So they assisted us with sandbags for the last storm. Combined, there was over 220 sandbags that were distributed. Some of them went to Pleasant Street to the stores there. I know that the mayor was involved in that project as well. And there was many other areas that I think sandbags really made a difference. And we're still getting requests now. I actually delivered some today from people. So that's still going on with emergency management. As far as the fire department response data, the chief told me he emailed it out to you. And is there any questions on anything with it? Now you're muted.
I just did it again. I forwarded those to the committee members, but I do not have any questions.
Okay. So significant responses, 32 Spalding Street. There was an apartment building fire with damage to the wall between the first, second floors. It's a multi-unit apartment building. It's an older building with concerns, the building condition and occupancy. Prompt response and fire extinguishment was critical for a positive outcome in a building that's certainly considered to be a target hazard. There was no civilian or firefighter injuries for that one. Another significant incident was hazardous materials incident on West Thames Street. It started probably right in front of American Ambulance and went for about over a mile. A hydraulic oil spill that the road needed to be shut down, and sand trucks were needed to contain the spill. So the fire department was well involved in that for a few hours and shut the road down and took necessary actions. The tropical storm, again, additional staffing was placed on frontline apparatus, and there was numerous calls for trees, wires down. For the IDA remnants, additional staffing for the service truck to assist with pump and equipment transport. Numerous calls for occupants that were trapped in stranded vehicles, flooded basements, utility concerns, and then for flooding. And pretty much the whole city fire department operated for, I would say, almost 10 hours with all those different emergencies, and certainly were taxed the entire time. Some critical needs. Squad A is still scheduled for extensive overhaul at fleet maintenance this month. They anticipate it'll be out for 4 to 6 weeks. There is a spare engine 4, but if another engine goes out of service, the chief has already asked about borrowing an engine from one of the other departments, and Chief Milton offered engine 52 should the need arise. But they also currently have an ET51 is out of service. So the chief may look to another department to step up should we need to borrow an engine. Some staffing, the fire code clerk position was filled on August 30th. And the appointment was a reappointment of Robin Dowda. I apologize if I said that wrong. The MPU project on the 8th Street Bridge went through without a hitch, even though it was in its final stages during the tropical storm. Additional staffing was released as soon as the road was open to alternating traffic. Facilities, both stations remain closed to the public. And as Rob talked about with COVID, it certainly has affected the fire department. Recently, number of calls that continually increase, and has affected the operations of the fire department. Fire services, the chiefs met on August 17th amongst themselves, then again on August 18th with the city manager. The next scheduled meeting is September 22nd, and he reports that they made substantial progress on a number of fronts. And that is his plan Respectfully submitted.
Thank you, Mark. Pro Tem Bettencourt, any questions for NFT?
No, I'm good.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to TAFL, Chief Jenks.
As I said, we had a busy month, 65 calls. Pretty much other than the hurricane and the storm and the remains of Ida, everything was pretty much status quo. For the members of the company during the hurricane, even though we ran about 8 calls, contributed 262 man hours for that one incident alone. We were prepared to have multiple operational shifts if needed, and our auxiliary came in and prepared a couple of meals for us. We also had an ambulance here from American, as well as the doors were open to the PD and Public Works. Already discussed Ida. I have one member that was under quarantine for COVID. Ironically, he was vaccinated, and it wasn't him, but it was a family member that was also vaccinated. So other than that, that's pretty much where we stand. We're good with PPE. Critical needs. We're still waiting for utilities to pull 2 poles out of our parking lot so we can kind of move forward to the next. The lights have been relocated to the basketball court and the timers have been taken care of, but we still have 2 poles standing up in the middle of our parking lot. So hopefully NPU can get out here as soon as things slow down for them and they can get them poles pulled and we can move on. And other than that, unless you got any other questions.
Tim, I'll expedite that tomorrow when I get to work, or I'll try to anyway.
Yeah, Barry, I understand you guys are busy. It's not a big deal. It's just, the lights, the poles, everything's been down, changed over. So, you guys had your hands full with the storm. So I wasn't anticipating or saying it. It's just that, whenever it gets done, it gets done. We can't move on, and hopefully we'll have them done by the winter so we can figure out how we're going to plow.
Yep, understood. Thank you.
Pro Tem Bettencourt, anything for the chief?
Negative.
Okay, thank you, chief. Moving on to Yannick.
All right, good evening, everyone. Last month, Yannick had 61 incidents. If you look at the pie chart, you'll see where about 69% of our calls were rescue and medical. 20%, 20 of those calls, or a third of the calls, were motor vehicle accidents. And to piggyback on the conversation that you were having with Chief Daly regarding speed and stuff, I sent out to all the chiefs, I sent out to all my members some information I got from UConn. There's a 300% increase of people on limited access highways last year that were exceeding 85 miles an hour. So I kind of use that as a training point for my folks. Make sure they wear the high vis gear, make sure they keep their head on a swivel, and don't trust anyone. Assume every car driving by you wants to run you over. So I did send that out as kind of like a safety point to all the other chiefs. We had 1 structure fire on Plain Hill, and the first line pretty much got that. We were fortunate. Started in the basement, worked up through some interior walls and into the attic area. Vaccination levels, as you're kind of hearing from everyone else, holding steady. We're still at 70%. Our supplies are adequate, and we've had no exposures at the station. Members are still required to be wearing masks when in the apparatus. I have 1 member taking firefighter 1 up at the Eastern Connecticut Fire School. I have a 2nd member. I wanted to go with him, but he is a lineman for a subcontractor lineman for Northeast Utilities. So it just didn't seem to make sense sending him to fire school, knowing the attendance policy is pretty strict up there. We have scheduled training for Yantic, again, still moving water, pumping, hose work, and special rescue work. And there'll be a class in October. I'm encouraging as many members as I can to take a National Fire Academy class. Milty may Chief Milton may speak on this a little greater detail, but we've got the opportunity for a free National Fire Academy class on strategy and tactics in October at the East Great Plains Firehouse. We had scheduled fast board training with the Norwich Fire Department. That was postponed due to Ida. And we've reviewed the OSHA COVID protocols. I know one of my guys, my rescue captain, has been working with Mark Waters on that, and it's pretty much becoming a citywide implement tool. We've probably all been following those policies, those procedures, but now OSHA is kind of mandating it, so we have one policy related to that for all the fire departments. Early in the month, we had a leaking 20-pound. Had the propane tanks you can trade out and stuff. The guys handled it. They removed the tank to a safe area. They went to use one of the hydrants. I contacted the Norwich Fire Marshal's office. A couple of the hydrants at the Norwich Town Hall are not operational. So the Fire Marshal's office is done their research, and they put the onus on the property owner to get those fixed. The one hydrant we go to in front of Stop and Shop was where we ended up getting our water from, even though we had made the propane tank a remote issue. During Hurricane Henri, we had coverage from about 5:30 in the morning till 2 in the afternoon. We had a real good group. We had 19 folks, and then at 2 o'clock, things started to fade away, and we were down to a minimal crew. We actually kind of closed shop at 4:30. We did not turn one wheel during Henri, so it was we just watched it rain. Ida, a little different story. I had 22 members present. We had up to 9 roads in the district that were closed at one time, and we had 21 pump jobs, 3 vehicles in water rescues, 2 vehicles in water investigations, and as we've discussed, we did evacuate the comfort suites. There was about 5 foot of water in the basement. Really concerned about we couldn't even shut the elevators down. So on the public address system, we advised everyone to use the stairs. And then when that was completed, a room-to-room search was done to make sure that everyone had evacuated and was accounted for. Amongst all that other stuff, we had 6 emergency calls. The gas leak that Engine 3 handled on Washington Street, fire alarm at St. Jude's, water heater failure, broken water pipe, and then it broke the gas line going to the water heater on East Town Street. A medical on West Town Street, and a motor vehicle accident at Washington and Harlan. And again, can't thank our mutual aid partners, especially Laurel Hill. Laurel Hill was like right next door to the medical, so let them handle that. And they came across that accident at Washington and Harlan, heading back down to Bliss Place, Julian Terrace. Other than that, that is all I have. Well, no, I don't have. Let's see. Engine 31's been back and forth to the city garage. It went to Firematic up in Rocky Hill. Again, some electronic issues going on related to that. That should be squared away. Engine 32's next in line. Engine 32 has some type of power module electronic device that's failing, constantly going into alarm. So that will be going probably to Rocky Hill for a couple days. And Squad 36 is at the city garage. Minor problem, but going to investigate the people in the vehicles. It's a higher vehicle, but the siren speakers are low, so it's getting new siren speakers. The speakers failed because of exposure to water. So, other than that, that's about all I have.
Okay, Chief, thank you. Anything for the Chief, Mark?
Negative, thank you, Bill.
Okay. Akam.
Hello, good evening.
Hi, Chief.
How are you? All right, so I did not get the monthly reports to you. I have been otherwise obligated elsewhere the last few days, so I will get that to you in the next couple days, I promise. Significant responses. Otherwise, we responded to 18 calls last month, bringing our grand total to 129 for the year, 26 of those mutual aid. Tropical Storm Henry, we did staff the station and we responded to 2 calls of service, one for a tree with wires down and then a possible basement fire, which turned out to be nothing right next to that. Coming into September, we did respond to 8 calls due to the remnants of Ida. And we didn't staff the station, but we definitely did have enough people able to actually respond. Critical needs. So engine 41 still waits on parts to come in, so that way we can finish taking care of the lights that are low on voltage, I guess you would say, according to City Garage. 42 has been in and out of City Garage as well. So I reported last month that it went in for a day to replace the batteries. It ended up going back in and was out of service for 6 days because they had to rebuild the alternator and a fuse box while waiting on a new alternator to come in. And then it went back out of service for another 4 days to actually get the alternator and a few broken wires replaced. So for right now, we are good to go. Hopefully it stays that way. Membership holds strong at 36. We have 1 application in right now that we are following the process to take care of. Facilities wise, we are still waiting on finance to link up the accounting to get our grant from the state. Otherwise, capital projects are on the way. We're taking care of all the bids for that stuff and we'll keep those in forward motion. Training wise, I have 2 members that need to retest their practical and written exams for EMT. Another one that needs to retest written, and then another one that is lined up for his initial practical and written exams. I do have 1 member at Firefighter 1 at Eastern Connecticut Fire School, another member that's taken EMT through American. And then training throughout August focused on preparing for our live burn, which is slated for Saturday, September 18th at Eastern Connecticut Fire School. COVID-19 wise, we do remain open, but we are following the guidance from CDC and the city on that. PPE is required on all calls. At a minimum, it's mask and gloves. And our department provided input along with Yannick and the other ones for that COVID OSHA ETS that Mark Waters and several others were able to work on in person. We did have 2 calls that we were notified that were contacts. The patients tested positive for COVID. The first call, everybody was vaccinated, wearing the proper PPE, so there was no requirement to quarantine. We did have 1 member test positive shortly after, but we're fairly certain that didn't come from the call, so he was quarantined, but he's back now. The second call, we didn't interact with the patient at all. PPE is doing well, and our vaccination rate still at 67%. Radio and dispatch upgrades, we continue working forward on that, along with the other chiefs, automatic mutual aid plan and SOGs. I know in one of the emails floating around, I didn't get it in time, but we did submit who our rep is going to be to support our end of the SOG committee. Other than that, the other notable items, the only things that we have as outcomes from Ida, the area of 61 White Plains was damaged and is sinking out, and Public Works has cones around it, but because of where it's located on the road, again, going back to the earlier conversation of speeding cars, faster moving people because everybody's in a hurry. That could become a problem if a car hits that. And then today I found out that there's another one at the area of 215 Old Canterbury Turnpike, which Public Works also has. It's a sinkhole right next to a catch basin. So just 2 things that we're keeping an eye on. And if it gets worse, we'll work closely with Public Works. Other than that, that's all I got.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Anything further, Chief Mark?
Negative.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on, EGP, Chief Milton.
Good evening, everybody.
Hello.
Well, everyone's talked about the 2 storms. EGP was manned for both storms. I don't have all the man hours off the top of my head as I've started a new position at my job, and that's taken up a lot more of my free time right now. But last month we responded to 94 incidents. Seems to be more of an uptick on EMS calls that the fire department's not needed on. That I'm kind of working on that as well to see what's going on there. Continued our routine trainings. Apparatus is out for routine maintenance. PPE is good for everything so far. No members have been exposed that I'm aware of, and no one's had to quarantine. Knock on wood. Hopefully, it stays that way. As Chief Iber said, we do have the National Fire Academy coming in next month for a strategy and tactics class, which I'm actually getting ready to email out. I was actually getting ready to do it earlier, but something happened to my laptop, and so I'll probably be emailing that out to the area departments sometime tomorrow, looking to see if they have some members that would like to attend this class. And as Mark Waters had mentioned, my tanker is currently out of service, hopefully for about another week or so. I'll be in repair from some damage, unfortunately, but hopefully I'll have that back next week. Station coming along for our renovation project. We've been renovating the hall for a while now, and it's just taking a while because we've been in no significant rush, so we're kind of just taking our time. Working on getting the outside of the firehouse done on there, having that re-sided. Critical needs for the firehouse, a replacement of engine 52 and the parking lot of the fire department. Other than that, that's all I have. If anyone's got any questions.
Nothing, Mark. I just wanted to ask, Chief, so you inherited the squad from Taffel, for lack of a better word to call it a squad.
Correct. Yep. Thank you. I actually forgot to bring that up. Our old truck actually is being donated to the Eastern Connecticut Fire School. They're going to be using it up there to haul the equipment around their training ground. So that's where that truck's going to be going. I reached out to the purchasing agent to find out exactly what I needed to do to make that happen. I found out what I needed to do, got the paperwork all signed and everything. So the truck should be heading up there in about another week or two off the top of my head. One of my guys works up there part-time as an instructor. He's going to bring it up there when he has to work that day. And so that truck's going to be up there, and it'll come off the Norwich rolls, if you will.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful, because that's exactly what I was going to ask you. What were the plans for the old truck? Because I noticed that I don't know, I'm going to call it your new truck, right? Taffel's old truck,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Was in service. I saw it roll the other day. It's probably been in service for a while, but I saw it for the first time roll out of the house the other day. So yeah, good. And I think that's a great donation to make. Okay, moving on. Laurel Hill.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Chief.
All right. Well, Aaron Westervelt, Chief of Laurel Hill. I'm going to make this kind of quick because I'm the last one, and I just recently got out of work. So COVID supplies so far were so good. I was part of the, it was myself, Mark Waters, and Chris Collinaire. I'll be honest with you, Chris Collinaire and Mark Waters did all the work. So I would just like to thank them for that plan that came out to everybody. They did all the work on that. I was basically just there for the meeting itself. So thank them for the plan. We are following that plan. It has been given to Bacchus Hospital as the City of Norwich all fire departments plans. And we are following it. Obviously, there is a mask requirement when in the station. Anytime we're in the office doing trainings, when we're within 6 feet of each other. We are taking our temperatures every time we are at the station, making sure no one has any symptoms or anything like that. We are documenting it appropriately. So there's that. As far as the storms go, we had 2 apparatus fully manned for the hurricane that did not cause much problems. So that was good for us, but we did have 2 apparatus fully manned for the entire thing. And we had an ambulance staged as well up in Laurel Hill for the majority of the time. And then for Ida, obviously I did not get as many calls, so our services were offered out to anyone who needed them. Yannick took us up on that. We ended up doing quite a few calls up there, assisting with pumping. We went to the emergencies that they had as well to assist them with manpower. We had a total of 14 people for that event, from about 8 o'clock in the morning until after cleanup was about 4:30. We did that. So we responded to, I believe it was about 13 calls that day for service. through Yantic, my district, and we also helped out with a pump job over in the city off of Boswell Avenue where they had the major flooding. So we did help out there. Other than that, the information from last month has been sent to you. If you have any questions on it, by all means, let me know. Other than that, I'm going to make it brief, and we're gonna end it there.
Okay, well, thank you, Chief. I don't have any questions for you. Alderman Bettencourt? No? Oh, nothing from Mark. So thank you very much. Okay, and we are on to item number 6, public safety items for future discussion. And this doesn't have to come just from me or from the members of the committee, but from the entire group. Anything you would like me to add to our upcoming agenda for our October meeting?
Joe, I'm going to say that we probably should start having conversations regarding the police station situation. It may be time to revisit that.
Okay, that's one. Anything else you got that any of you would like for me to add to our agenda? And if you, and again, I think I say this almost every time, if you happen to think of something, in a week or so, shoot me an email. I'll be happy to add it to the agenda. Okay, I'll say that we're ready to move on. And as I said, you're more than welcome to send anything that you would like me to add to me in an email or send me a text message, give me a call. That would be fine. Moving on to item number 7, just to announce our next meeting will be October the 13th, 2021. And I anticipate that being a Zoom meeting. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Moved and seconded by the chair. All those in favor?
Yes.
Unanimously carried. We are adjourned at 8:32 p.m. Thank you all very much for your time and for your dedication to the city. And I will see you on October the 13th, if not sooner. Be safe.
Thank you all. Good night.
Take care, all.